Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. The transport's engines coughed black smoke as Ian Rawlins shouldered his repair kit and stepped onto the burning sand of Xartul. Twin suns blazed overhead like angry eyes, turning the air into a shimmering wall of heat that hit him like a physical blow. Sweat beaded instantly on his weathered face as he squinted at the ramshackle frontier settlement sprawling before him. "Welcome to paradise," he muttered, pulling his tool bag higher on his shoulder. The city looked like it had been assembled from scrap metal and stubborn hope. Domed buildings clustered around a central plaza, their surfaces scarred by sandstorms and energy weapons. Imperial patrol drones circled overhead, their crimson scanning beams sweeping the streets like mechanical vultures. Ian's boots crunched on crystallized sand as he made his way toward the plaza. Something nagged at the edges of his mind, a familiar ache that had nothing to do with the heat. This place felt wrong, or maybe right in a way that scared him. Focus on the job, he told himself. Fix the generators, collect the credits, get off-world. The crowd noise grew louder as he approached the plaza's heart. Dozens of beings clustered around something in the center, humans in environment suits, blue-skinned Kithera with their trademark neck ridges, and others he couldn't immediately identify. Their voices carried an ugly edge. "Should have done this years ago. Clan-killing bitch deserves worse. Make an example. Show the others what happens when you betray the Empire." Ian pushed through the crowd, his technician's coveralls marking him as another off-world nobody. The beings parted reluctantly, shooting him annoyed glances. A Kithara merchant spat something acidic that sizzled against the sand near his boots. Then he saw the cage. It rose from the plaza's center like a twisted monument, bio-steel bars gleaming with an inner light that hurt to look at directly. The pedestal beneath it bore carved symbols that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking straight at them. Ancient work. Older than the Empire, older than most civilizations. Inside the cage sat a woman. Ian's breath caught in his throat. She was beautiful in a way that bypassed rational thought and hit him somewhere primal. Green skin that seemed to glow with its own inner light. A perfectly sculpted face with high cheekbones and full lips. Her body was lean muscle and dangerous curves, barely concealed by what looked like traditional combat gear, strips of dark material that covered the essentials while leaving most of her skin exposed to the burning suns. But it was her eyes that stopped him cold. Bright blue, electric and alien, currently closed as if she were sleeping, or meditating, or waiting. First time seeing a huntress up close, off-worlder. Ian turned. A human teenager stood beside him, maybe 16 standard years, with the kind of cocky grin that came from growing up in places where survival was optional. Sand-colored hair stuck out from under a makeshift cap, and his clothes bore the patched-together look of frontier fashion. "Huntress?" Ian asked. "Tavale clan," the kid said, pronouncing it like he was spitting. "Or what's left of it. Name's Jack, by the way. Been watching you stare at her for the past 5 minutes." "I wasn't staring." "Sure you weren't." Jack's grin widened. "They all do, though. Something about huntresses gets under your skin, makes you think stupid thoughts. That's how they catch their prey." Ian forced himself to look away from the cage. What's she done? Killed her own clan sisters, they say. Turned traitor, sold information to the resistance. Imperial Tribunal found her guilty 3 days ago. They're gonna execute her at sunset, make it real public. Warning to the others, you know. The woman in the cage shifted slightly, and Ian's attention snapped back to her like a magnet finding true north. She still hadn't opened her eyes, but something about her posture had changed. More alert, like she was listening. "Execution's a bit dramatic for the frontier," Ian said carefully. "Yeah, well, that's what happens when you cross the Empire out here. They gotta make examples, or everyone starts getting ideas." Jack studied Ian with calculating eyes. You got the look of someone who's had his own problems with authority. Ian's hand unconsciously moved to his chest, where old scars lay hidden beneath his coveralls. Just a technician. Right, and I'm the Emperor's nephew. Jack laughed. Tell you what, technician, you want to prove you got stones? Go take a closer look at our sleeping beauty there. Look her right in the eyes when she wakes up. Why would I want to do that? Because most off-worlders are too scared. They hear stories about huntresses, about what they can do to a man's mind. But you got that look, like you've seen worse things than a pretty alien girl in a cage. The crowd's muttering grew louder. Someone threw a piece of fruit that splattered against the biosteel bars. The woman inside didn't react, but Ian felt his jaw clench. They always throw things? He asked. Crowd's getting restless. Execution's not for another few hours, but people been gathering all day. Some came from other settlements just to watch. Public spectacle, you know. The Empire likes its theater. Ian studied the cage more carefully. The lock mechanism was ancient, probably predating Imperial technology by centuries. Not electronic, something organic, biomechanical. The kind of system that responded to specific triggers rather than simple force. Strange lock for a prison, he murmured. Yeah? You some kind of security expert too? I've seen a few systems in my time. Ian moved closer to the cage, ignoring the hostile stares from the crowd. The carved symbols on the pedestal seemed to pulse with faint energy. This doesn't look imperial. Course not. They're using the old clan execution site, symbolic, they say, where the huntresses used to bring their prey for judgment. Something cold crawled up Ian's spine. Their prey? Before the Empire tamed them, huntresses were the apex predators on this world. They'd hunt for mates the way big cats hunt for food. Brutal, beautiful, and absolutely lethal. The strong survived. The weak became protein paste. Ian crouched beside the pedestal, studying the carved symbols more closely. They tugged at something deep in his memory, not specific knowledge, but a sense of familiarity, like a song heard in childhood but never quite forgotten. You're brave, I'll give you that, Jack said. Most people won't get within spitting distance of a cage huntress, even a condemned one. Why not? Because they're never really caged. Not the dangerous ones. A true huntress always has an escape plan, always has a way to turn the tables. It's in their nature. As if summoned by his words, the woman in the cage opened her eyes. The effect was immediate and devastating. Those bright blue orbs locked onto Ian's face with predatory intensity, and he felt something fundamental shift in his chest. Recognition flared. Not of her face, but of something deeper, something that bypassed conscious thought and spoke directly to parts of his brain he'd forgotten existed. She smiled, and it was like watching a blade find its sheath. Well, she said, her voice carrying an accent he couldn't place but somehow understood perfectly. Look what the desert winds dragged in. The crowd fell silent. Even the drones overhead seemed to pause in their circuits. You're not local, she continued, studying Ian with the same intensity he'd been studying her. Wrong stance, wrong smell, wrong everything. Off-world military, maybe? No. Too loose in the shoulders for active duty. Contractor? Technician, Ian said, his voice rougher than he'd intended. Liar. Her smile widened, showing teeth that were just slightly too sharp to be human. But an interesting liar. Most off-worlders won't even look me in the face, afraid I'll steal their souls or some such nonsense. Do you? Only if they ask nicely. Jack laughed nervously. Maybe we should— What's your name, technician? The huntress asked, ignoring the boy entirely. Ian hesitated. Something warned him that giving his name to this woman would be crossing a line he couldn't uncross. But those blue eyes held him like gravity, and he found himself answering before conscious thought could intervene. Ian Rawlins. Ian. She rolled the syllables around like she was tasting them. Old Earth name, Scottish, I think, means gift from God. Her smile turned predatory. How wonderfully appropriate. And you? Tyrus Travail, last daughter of a dead clan, condemned traitor, and, if you're very lucky, the last thing you'll ever see. The crowd stirred uneasily. Someone shouted for Ian to get back, that the huntress was trying to work her magic on him. But he couldn't move. Those blue eyes held him like chains, and part of him didn't want to break free. "You're not afraid," Tyrus observed. "Everyone else here reeks of fear, sweat, and adrenaline, but you smell like sadness and secrets, old ones." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you don't. Memory's a funny thing, isn't it? Sometimes it protects us from truths we're not ready to handle." She leaned forward as much as the cage allowed, and Ian caught a hint of her scent, something wild and clean, like ozone after lightning. "Tell me, Ian Rawlins, do you ever dream of flying?" The question hit him like a physical blow. Images flashed through his mind, soaring through star fields, energy crackling around his hands, a woman's voice calling his name across impossible distances. Then the memories scattered like startled birds, leaving only confusion and a bone-deep ache. What? Dreams, Ian. Do you have dreams of flying, of falling, of fire and fury and the space between heartbeats where everything changes? No, he lied. Liar, she repeated, but gently this time. It's all right. The truth will find you eventually. It always does. Behind him, Jack tugged on his sleeve. Come on, man. This is getting weird. We should go. But Ian couldn't move. Something about this moment felt inevitable, like a key turning in a lock he'd never known existed. The carved symbols on the pedestal seemed to pulse brighter, responding to what? His heartbeat, his proximity. Step back from the cage, off-worlder. The voice cracked like a whip across the plaza. Ian turned to see Imperial peacekeepers pushing through the crowd, their black armor gleaming with menace. The leader, a human woman with corporal's stripes, had her hand on her sidearm. This is a restricted area. Just looking, Ian said. Looking's fine. Talking to the prisoner isn't. Move along. It's all right, Corporal Hayes, Tyrus called out, her voice carrying an edge of dark humor. The nice technician was just admiring the craftsmanship. Weren't you, Ian? The corporal's eyes narrowed. You know this man, prisoner? Oh, we're old friends, aren't we? Gift from God? Ian felt heat rise in his cheeks. I've never seen her before in my life. Memory's a funny thing, Tyrus repeated, and something in her tone made his pulse quicken. Sometimes we forget the most important meetings. Sometimes we have to be reminded. The corporal stepped between them. I said, move along, technician. Don't make me repeat myself. Ian nodded and started to turn away, but something made him pause. Maybe it was the way the sunlight caught the carved symbols, or the way Tyrus watched him with those impossible blue eyes, or maybe it was just the bone-deep certainty that walking away now would be the biggest mistake of his life. Instead, he stepped closer to the pedestal. I said move, the corporal began. Ian's boot came down hard on one of the carved symbols. The universe exploded into light. Energy erupted from the carved stone, racing up Ian's leg and through his body like liquid fire. The biosteel cage dissolved, its bars flowing away like water. Tyrus rose from her seated position with predatory grace, power crackling around her green skin like living lightning. The crowd screamed. The peacekeepers reached for their weapons, and Tyrus Travail, last daughter of a dead clan, stepped out of her prison and walked straight toward Ian Rawlins with murder and desire burning in her alien eyes. Well, she said, pressing her body against his as energy continued to dance between them. This should be interesting. Then her lips found his, and the world caught fire. The kiss lasted 3 heartbeats, long enough for Ian to taste lightning and wild storms, short enough to leave him starving for more. When Tyrus pulled back, her blue eyes blazed with triumph and something darker. "Perfect timing," she whispered against his lips. Then she spun away from him, facing the crowd with the fluid grace of a born predator. Her voice carried across the plaza like a battle cry. "Behold! The bride trap is sprung! The hunt begins anew!" The crowd's screams turned to confused murmurs. Corporal Hayes kept her weapon trained on Tyrus but didn't fire, confusion flickering across her face like a broken hologram. "What the hell?" Ian started. Pain lanced across his chest, white-hot and searing. He looked down to see lines of energy carving themselves into his skin through his coveralls, burning away fabric and flesh alike. The design was intricate, interlocking spirals that seemed to pulse with their own heartbeat. "Don't fight it," Tyrus said without looking at him. "The mark needs to set properly or you'll die screaming." "The mark?" Ian gasped, falling to one knee as the burning intensified. "The mate bond. Congratulations, gift from God. You just became the first off-worlder stupid enough to trigger a huntress-claiming ritual in over 2 decades. An elderly Kithera pushed through the crowd, his neck ridges flushed deep purple with agitation. "Impossible! This was an execution. Imperial justice!" Tyrus laughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass. "Was it, Elder Loktal? Did you really think the Empire understood our ways well enough to stage a proper execution?" She gestured at the dissolving cage remnants. "That was a bride trap, you senile fool, the oldest claiming ritual of the Tavale bloodline. But the trial, the evidence, all perfectly real. I did kill my clan sisters. I did betray Imperial secrets to the Resistance. But I also invoked the ancient right, the choice to die free or live bound." Her eyes found Ian's, and he saw hunger there that made his knees weak. "I chose to live." Corporal Hayes's weapon wavered. This is some kind of trick. Prisoners don't get to choose. Imperial law recognizes indigenous customs when they don't interfere with imperial interests," Tyrus interrupted. "Look it up in your little rule book, Corporal. Subsection 12 of the Colonial Administration Code." The mark on Ian's chest flared one final time, then settled into a steady glow visible through his burned coveralls. The pain faded, replaced by something else, a connection, warm and alive and utterly alien. "What did you do to me?" he demanded. "Saved your life, most likely." Tyrus moved to stand beside him, one hand resting possessively on his shoulder. "The mate bond protects you from clan challenge. No Tavale hunter can touch you now without facing me in single combat." "And the downside?" Her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "The regeneration cycle. 6 days where our nervous systems synchronize completely. Most off-worlders can't handle the neural feedback. Their minds burn out like overloaded circuits." Jack stared at them both with wide eyes. How many have tried?" 12. Over the past century." Tyrus's tone was conversational, as if discussing the weather. 7 went insane on day 3. 3 died from system shock on day 5. 1 lasted until day 6 before his heart exploded from the strain. "And the 12th?" Ian asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. "Begged me to kill him on day 2. I obliged." The crowd was backing away now, leaving a wide circle around the unlikely pair. Even the peacekeepers seemed uncertain how to proceed. Corporal Hayes spoke rapidly into her comm unit, requesting instructions from command. "This is insane," Ian said. "I didn't agree to any of this." "You triggered the trap. That's agreement enough." Tyrus's hand slid down his arm, her touch sending electric jolts through the new neural pathways the mark had opened. "Besides, it's too late now. The bond can only be broken by death. Yours, mine, or both. There has to be another way. There isn't. Her voice carried absolute certainty. 6 days, Ian Rawlins. 6 days to synchronize completely, or the feedback will kill us both. The process has already begun. As if to prove her point, Ian felt something flutter at the edges of his consciousness, foreign thoughts, alien emotions, the ghost touch of another mind against his own. "I can feel you," he whispered, "and I can feel your terror, also your arousal, which is interesting." Her smile turned predatory. "Don't worry, the fear will pass. The arousal, on the other hand." "Orders from command," Corporal Hayes announced, her voice cutting through their conversation. "The prisoner and her companion are to be escorted to the Imperial garrison for processing." "I think not," Tyrus said pleasantly. She moved like liquid lightning. One moment she was standing beside Ian, the next she had Corporal Hayes disarmed and on her knees, the Peacekeeper's own weapon pressed against her throat. "The ancient rite protects the chosen mate from Imperial interference during the regeneration cycle," Tyrus announced to the stunned crowd. "Any attempt to separate us will be considered an act of war against the Tavale bloodline." "The Tavale clan is extinct," Elder Loktal protested. "You killed them all." "I killed the weak ones, the failures, the ones who would have led us to extinction through compromise and cowardice." Tyrus's eyes blazed with fanatic fervor. "Now there is only me, and him, and the possibility of something new." She released the corporal and stepped back, the weapon disappearing into the folds of her minimal clothing with practiced ease. 6 days, she repeated, looking directly at Ian. "Starting now." The mark on his chest pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, and Ian realized with growing horror that she was right. The process had begun, and there was no stopping it. The hunt had claimed him. And somewhere in the depths of his fractured memory, something old and dangerous stirred to life. The abandoned mining station clung to the canyon wall like a metallic parasite, its rusted surfaces scarred by decades of sandstorms. Ian pressed himself against the corrugated wall, his chest burning where the mark pulsed in sync with his racing heart. 3 hours since the plaza. 3 hours since his world had collapsed into chaos and electric blue eyes. "Stop fidgeting," Tyrus whispered, materializing beside him with that unnatural silence that made his skin crawl. "You're broadcasting anxiety like a distress beacon." "Maybe because I'm anxious," Ian hissed back. "In case you forgot, half the planet wants us dead." "Only half? I'm disappointed." She moved closer, close enough that he could feel heat radiating from her green skin. "Though technically, they want you dead. Me, they want to study." The mark flared, sending lightning through his nervous system as she leaned against his shoulder. The sensation was becoming familiar, too familiar, like his body was learning to crave her proximity. "Don't," he said, pulling away. "Don't what?" But her smile said she knew exactly what. "That thing you do. The touching." "The touching has a name. It's called the bonding process, and fighting it will only make the cycle more painful." Her fingers traced the air inches from his skin, and even that ghost touch sent shivers down his spine. "Your nervous system is adapting to mine. Resistance is futile and uncomfortable." Ian's comm unit crackled to life. "Repeat, all citizens are advised to shelter in place. The fugitives are considered extremely dangerous. Imperial forces are conducting systematic sweeps." Tyrus crushed the device with casual strength, plastic and metal crumbling like paper in her grip. "Annoying. That was my only link to what? Your handler? Your contact? The people who sent a simple technician to this particular world at this particular time?" Her blue eyes bored into his. "You're not very good at lying, Ian." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you don't. Just like you don't know why you recognize the bride trap symbols, or why your heartbeat spikes every time I mention flying." She stepped closer, backing him against the wall. "Just like you don't know why you smell like home." Home. Old ozone. Burned metal. The space between stars. Her nose nearly touched his throat as she inhaled deeply. 20 years I've been waiting to smell that scent again." Ian's mind reeled. 20 years. He'd been 25 when the memory stopped, when he'd woken up in a medical facility on Kepler Station with 3 months of his life missing and scars that no one could explain. "I've never been to this system before," he said. Liar. But she said it gently, almost fondly. "Your conscious mind doesn't remember. That's good. It means the neural blocks are still holding, but your body remembers. Your cells remember. And soon." She pressed her palm flat against his chest, directly over the mark. Power flowed between them, alien and electric, and suddenly Ian was somewhere else entirely. Flying. Stars wheeling overhead as he soared through vacuum in armor that felt like a second skin. Energy weapons blazing from his gauntlets as he dove toward a green world, toward creatures that moved like liquid death across a canyon floor, toward a young huntress with desperate blue eyes who— "No!" Ian jerked back to the present, gasping. The vision shattered, leaving only the taste of ozone and the echo of his own voice screaming coordinates he didn't recognize. Tyrus watched him with predatory satisfaction. "The blocks are weakening. Good. We'll need every scrap of what you used to be if we're going to survive the next 5 days." 5? I thought you said 6. Day 1 is nearly over. Time moves quickly when you're being hunted. She cocked her head, listening to something he couldn't hear. "Speaking of which, we need to move. Imperial search drones, maybe 15 minutes out." Ian pushed himself off the wall, his legs unsteady. "How can you possibly know that?" "Enhanced hearing comes with the package, along with enhanced strength, speed, reflexes, and," she grinned, showing those slightly too sharp teeth, "enhanced appetites." They moved deeper into the mining complex through corridors that reeked of rust and forgotten ambitions. Tyrus led the way with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where she was going, while Ian stumbled along behind, his mind still reeling from the vision. "You said you'd been waiting 20 years, he said finally. Waiting for what?" "For you to come back, for the universe to finish what it started." She paused at a junction, tilting her head again. "For the moment when I could claim what was always mine. I don't belong to anyone." "No? Then why does your skin sing when I touch it? Why does the mark burn brighter every time I'm near?" She turned to face him, backing him against another wall with fluid grace. "Why does every instinct you have scream at you to run, except the one that matters?" Her hand settled on his chest again, over the mark, and Ian felt his treacherous body respond. Heat bloomed under her touch, spreading outward like liquid fire. His pulse quickened, his breathing deepened, and somewhere in the back of his mind, alien thoughts whispered seductive promises. "Stop," he managed. "I haven't started yet." Her other hand traced the line of his jaw, her touch feather-light and devastating. "This is just the beginning, Ian. Just your nervous system learning to recognize mine. Wait until the real synchronization begins." "The what?" "Day 3, usually. That's when the neural barriers start dissolving. When you begin to feel what I feel, think what I think. When the boundary between us becomes negotiable." Ian swallowed hard. "And if I can't handle it, then you'll die screaming and I'll find another mate." Her tone was conversational, matter of fact. "Though I'd prefer you didn't. I've grown rather fond of your scent." Before he could respond, she spun away from him with that impossible speed, her hand emerging from her minimal clothing with a blade that gleamed like captured starlight. The weapon hummed with energy, its edge sharp enough to cut molecules. 3 targets, she whispered. Human, armed, moving like military. Ian strained to listen but heard nothing except his own thundering heartbeat. "How can you—" "Shh." Her free hand pressed against his lips, and even that simple contact sent electricity racing through his nervous system. "They're using sound dampeners, good ones, but they can't mask scent or heat signatures." A section of wall exploded inward, showering them with debris and superheated metal. Through the breach came 3 figures in Imperial combat armor, their weapons already tracking toward Ian's position. Tyrus moved like living lightning. The first soldier never saw her coming. Her blade took him in the throat, sliding between armor plates with surgical precision. The second managed to get off a shot before she reached him, a plasma bolt that turned the air into screaming fire. She twisted impossibly, the blast missing her by millimeters, and her return strike shattered his helmet and the skull beneath. The third soldier was smarter. Instead of trying to track her movement, he aimed for Ian. "Down!" Tyrus screamed. Ian dove sideways as energy beams carved smoking channels through the air where he'd been standing. The soldier advanced, his weapon charging for another shot, and Ian found himself staring down the barrel of certain death. Then something inside him snapped. Power erupted from his spine, ancient technology awakening after decades of dormancy. His vision shifted, tactical overlays flooding his awareness with targeting data and threat assessments. His hands moved without conscious thought, energy crackling between his fingers as systems he'd forgotten he possessed came online. The soldier's next shot never reached him. Ian's defensive field absorbed the plasma bolt and reflected it back amplified, turning the attacker into a brief, brilliant star. Silence fell over the ruined corridor. Ian stared at his hands where fading energy still danced between his fingers. The power felt familiar, like slipping into comfortable clothes, like coming home. "Well," Tyrus said, wiping her blade clean on the first soldier's armor, "that was illuminating. What just happened to me?" "You remembered. For about 30 seconds you remembered who you really are." She sheathed her weapon and moved to examine the bodies. Keeper-class combat enhancement, military-grade neural interfaces, bio-integrated weapon systems. Her blue eyes found his. "You weren't just any soldier, were you? You were one of the special ones." Ian's mind reeled. Keeper. The word triggered cascades of half-memories, fragments of a life he'd thought was lost forever. Training facilities hidden in asteroid belts, weapons that bonded with their wielders at the cellular level, a war that had ended before he was born, leaving only legends and survivors too dangerous to live openly. "The Keeper Corps was disbanded 50 years ago," he said. "Officially, yes. Unofficially—" She gestured at the scorch marks his power had left on the walls. "Some kept going, working in shadows, fighting wars that never made the newscasts, until someone decided they'd outlived their usefulness. Someone like the Empire. Someone exactly like the Empire." Her expression darkened. 20 years ago, they tried to eliminate the remaining keepers, assassination squads, orbital bombardments, neural toxins that could erase memories permanently. Most didn't survive. But some did. Some did. Some got away, hid among the general population, learned to be ordinary. Her hand found his cheek, the touch electric and gentle. Some erased their own memories to escape the hunters. Ian closed his eyes, pieces of the puzzle finally clicking into place. And some came here. And some fell from the sky like burning angels, fighting impossible odds to save a young huntress from Imperial execution squads. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Some kept fighting even after their armor failed, even after their weapons died, even after they should have been dead 3 times over. The memory hit him like a physical blow. Tyrus, younger, smaller, backing away from black-armored figures as energy beams carved smoking furrows in the canyon walls around her. His own voice, hoarse with pain and determination, shouting for her to run while he held them off with weapons that were failing one by one. "You were there," he breathed. "I was there. I watched you burn half a battalion to ash to give me time to escape. I watched you fall when your systems finally overloaded." Her thumb traced the line of his cheekbone. "I watched you die, Ian. And then I watched you live. The medical facility on Kepler Station was my clan's doing. We had contacts, resources. We smuggled you off-world, had your memories altered, gave you a new identity." Her smile was soft and savage. "We couldn't let the Empire's greatest weapon disappear completely, so we hid you in plain sight. And you've been watching me, waiting. 20 years of watching, 20 years of waiting for the right moment, the right crisis, the right excuse to bring you home." Her hand slipped down to rest over the mark on his chest. "The bride trap wasn't coincidence, Ian. I've been planning this for decades." The revelation should have terrified him, should have filled him with rage at the manipulation, the lies, the years of stolen life. Instead, he felt only a strange sense of completeness, like a circuit finally closing. "The Empire will come for us," he said. "Let them come. You're not the broken technician they think you are, and I'm not the helpless prisoner they expected." Her eyes blazed with anticipation. Together, we're something they've never faced before, something new. And if the regeneration cycle kills us first, then we'll die as ourselves, as what we were meant to be. She leaned closer, her breath warm against his ear. "But I don't think we'll die, Ian. I think we're going to burn so bright that the whole galaxy will see us coming." The mark on his chest pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, and Ian realized with growing certainty that she was right. The process had begun, and there was no stopping it. The hunt had claimed him. And somewhere in the depths of his fractured memory, something old and dangerous stirred to life, not just remembering what he'd been, but anticipating what he might become. The countdown had begun, 5 days to fusion or death. Ian found himself looking forward to both possibilities. The abandoned refinery stretched into darkness ahead of them, its skeletal framework casting twisted shadows in the light of Ariel's twin moons. Ian's enhanced senses, still adjusting to their awakened state, picked up the metallic tang of rust and something else, something alive and patient in the shadows. "We're not alone," he said quietly. Tyrus froze mid-step, her head tilting with predatory alertness. "Clan hunters, Teketh bloodline, by the scent." Her lips curved in a smile that promised violence. "They've been tracking us for hours. Friends of yours?" "Hardly. The Teketh consider my choice of mate politically inconvenient." She moved closer to him, close enough that her body heat warmed his arm. "They believe killing you will invalidate the bond and free me to choose a more suitable partner." "Will it?" "Only one way to find out." Her hand found his, fingers interlacing with casual possessiveness. "But first, you need to drink." Ian blinked. "What?" "The thirst ritual, 3rd day requirement." She produced a small vial of clear liquid from somewhere in her minimal clothing. "My body needs to know yours can process our shared fluids. It's intimate." "How intimate?" Her smile turned predatory. "Mouth to mouth. You drink, I taste. Our systems begin the deeper synchronization." She held up the vial, liquid catching moonlight like captured stars. "This is concentrated Tevail essence. 1 drop is enough to kill most species. For you. For me? For you, it should taste like coming home." Before Ian could protest, she'd taken the liquid into her mouth, holding it there as she moved closer. Her free hand cupped the back of his neck, drawing him down until their faces were inches apart. "Trust me," she whispered against his lips. Then she kissed him. The liquid flowed between them, carrying with it the taste of ozone and wild storms. Ian's nervous system exploded into sensation, not just the physical contact, but something deeper. Tyrus's emotions flooded through the growing bond: hunger, satisfaction, and underneath it all, a possessive love so fierce it took his breath away. When she pulled back, her eyes were glowing softly in the darkness. "How do you feel?" she asked. Ian took inventory. His skin tingled where she'd touched him, and the mark on his chest pulsed with steady warmth. But more than that, he could sense her heartbeat, her breathing, the subtle shift of muscles as she moved. "Like I'm not entirely in my own body anymore," he said. "Good. That means it's working." Her thumb traced his lower lip, collecting the last traces of the ritual fluid. "By day 5, you won't be able to tell where you end and I begin." A laser sight painted a red dot on the wall beside Ian's head. "Down!" Tyrus snarled, tackling him behind a massive support beam as energy bolts turned the air into screaming plasma. Teketh hunters, 3 of them, moving in formation. Ian's combat systems activated without conscious thought, his vision shifting to tactical display. Threat markers appeared in his peripheral vision, 3 humanoid figures moving with inhuman grace through the refinery's maze of pipes and catwalks. "They're good," he muttered. "They're dead," Tyrus corrected. "They just don't know it yet." She moved like liquid shadow, disappearing into the darkness with that unnatural silence. Ian heard the whisper of displaced air, a brief cry cut short, then nothing. 2 threat markers remained. The next attack came from above, a hunter dropping from the catwalks with twin blades gleaming. Ian rolled sideways, his own enhanced reflexes carrying him clear of the strike. His counterattack was pure instinct. Power flowed from his spine through his arm, emerging as a focused beam that took the hunter center mass. The final attacker tried to retreat, bounding across the refinery's upper levels with inhuman agility. Tyrus intercepted him halfway, her blade finding the gap between armor plates with surgical precision. Silence returned to the refinery. "Impressive," she said, dropping lightly to the floor beside him. "Your combat reflexes are almost fully integrated." It felt— Ian searched for words. Natural. Like I'd done it 1,000 times before. "You had. The Keeper Corps trained their operatives until violence became instinct. Until you could kill in your sleep and never remember the dreams." Her expression grew thoughtful. "The question is, how much else are you starting to remember?" And so their time passed. The ancient caves beneath Mount Kythak had witnessed the birth and death of civilizations. Now they would witness something unprecedented, the willing fusion of 2 incompatible nervous systems, or the spectacular failure that would leave nothing but ash and screaming echoes. Ian pressed his back against stone that predated the Empire by millennia, his enhanced vision mapping the cavern's impossible geometry. Crystalline formations jutted from walls like frozen lightning, their surfaces pulsing with the same bioelectric energy that coursed through the mark on his chest. "This place is alive," he said. Tyrus moved through the cavern with predatory grace, her green skin seeming to absorb and reflect the crystal light. "To veil sacred ground, where my ancestors conducted their first bondings, back when we were more energy than flesh." She traced patterns in the air, and the crystals responded, their glow intensifying. "The stone remembers. It will help stabilize the process. And if it doesn't, then we'll die spectacularly, and the cave will remember that too." Her smile was sharp with anticipation. "Day 1, Ian. Are you ready to stop being human?" Before he could answer, the first wave of synchronization hit him like a physical blow. His nervous system erupted in sensation, not pain exactly, but something beyond the normal spectrum of human experience. Every nerve ending became a conduit for alien electricity, every synapse a bridge between minds that had never been meant to connect. Tyrus was there suddenly, her hands on his face, her body pressed against his as bioelectric storms danced between them. "Breathe through it. Let it flow. Fighting the process only makes it worse." Ian gasped, tasting ozone and starfire. Her emotions flooded through the growing bond: hunger, determination, and underneath it all, a love so fierce it bordered on violence. "I can feel you, inside my head. And I can feel your terror, also your arousal." Her laugh was breathless, electric. The two aren't mutually exclusive. Their first coupling was lightning made flesh. Energy cascaded between them as their bodies moved together, each touch sending cascades of sensation through neural pathways that rewrote themselves in real time. Ian felt his consciousness expand, touching something vast and alien and utterly female. When it was over, they lay gasping on the crystal floor, their skin glowing with residual power. "Day 1, Tyrus whispered against his throat. 5 to go. How do you feel?" "Like I'm sharing my soul with a very stubborn, very powerful idiot." She traced the mark on his chest, and Ian shivered as her emotions bled through the contact. "How do you feel?" Ian took inventory. His body hummed with unfamiliar energy, and his mind felt crowded, as if he were sharing headspace with someone else. "Like, I'm not entirely myself anymore." "You're not. Neither am I. That's the point." She sat up, crystals reflecting in her blue eyes. "Each day, the boundaries blur a little more. By day 6, there won't be an Ian and a Tyrus. There will be us." The ground shook as orbital bombardment resumed. Dust rained from the ceiling, and the crystal formations chimed like distant bells. "They're getting closer," Ian said. "Let them come. By the time they reach us, we'll be ready." Tyrus stood, power crackling around her naked form like living jewelry. "Time for lesson 1, channeling your abilities through the bond." The next hours blurred together in a symphony of violence and revelation. Tyrus taught Ian to focus his recovered keeper abilities through their neural link, using her bioelectric nature as an amplifier. His energy beams became precisely controlled scalpels of destruction. His defensive fields gained the adaptive properties of her alien physiology. In return, Ian's tactical training bled through to her consciousness. Her natural hunting instincts merged with human strategic thinking, creating something that was neither entirely predator nor soldier but something new. They tested their growing abilities against the crystal formations, turning solid stone to vapor with focused thought. The cave itself seemed to approve, its ancient stone singing in harmonies that made Ian's bones ache with remembered music. "Keeper weapons were never meant to be used alone," Tyrus said as they rested between sessions. "Your people designed them for bonded pairs, human creativity amplified by alien enhancement. The Empire feared what you might become if you ever found suitable partners." "Is that why they tried to eliminate us?" "That's why they tried to eliminate everyone. Humans, to veil, anyone with the potential to transcend their limitations." Her eyes blazed with old anger. "They want a galaxy of servants, not a universe of equals." Day 2 brought the first assault. Imperial Marines rappelled into the cavern through blast holes carved in the ceiling, their combat armor gleaming with killing light. They moved with military precision, energy weapons trained on the lover's position. They lasted 47 seconds. Ian and Tyrus moved as one being, their combined consciousness anticipating attacks before they were launched. His energy beams carved through armor like paper, while her enhanced reflexes carried them both through patterns of destruction too complex for individual minds to process. When the smoke cleared, the cavern floor was littered with cooling metal and the sharp smell of ozone. 16 dead, Ian said, his voice eerily calm. "Good start," Tyrus replied, stepping over a fallen Marine with casual indifference. "But they'll send better next time." She was right. Day 3 brought elite huntresses from rival clans, their bio-enhanced forms moving like liquid death through the crystal maze. These were Tyrus's own people, and Ian felt her anguish bleeding through the bond as she was forced to kill them. "I'm sorry," he said afterward, holding her as she shook with suppressed grief. "They made their choice, as did I." But her tears tasted of starfire and regret. By day 4, the fusion had progressed beyond anything either of them had experienced. Ian could access memories that weren't his own. Tyrus as a child, learning to hunt in the desert wastes. Tyrus gained tactical knowledge spanning decades of human warfare, battle plans unfolding in her mind like deadly flowers. They were becoming something unprecedented, a perfect synthesis of human innovation and alien enhancement. "The strain is increasing," Ian said, pressing his palms against his temples as foreign thoughts cascaded through his consciousness. "I can barely tell which memories are mine." "That's normal. Day 4 is when most mates burn out." Tyrus's voice came from everywhere and nowhere, their neural links so deep that physical sound was becoming optional. "But you're not most mates. You're keeper trained. Your mind was built to handle impossible loads. And if I'm wrong, then we'll die together, and that's not the worst way to go." The final assault began at dawn on day 5. Imperial dreadnoughts descended through the atmosphere like falling gods, their massive hulls scarred with weapon ports that could crack continents. Orbital bombardment platforms deployed in perfect formation, their targeting systems locked onto the mountain's peak. In the cavern below, Ian felt the approaching doom like a weight on his soul. "Time's up," he said. "Not yet. One more day. One more fusion." Tyrus pressed against him, her skin radiating heat that had nothing to do with arousal. "By dawn tomorrow, the 6th and final day, the real magic will begin. We might not survive that long. Then we'd better make this one count." Their coupling that night was transcendent. Energy storms raged between them as their nervous systems achieved near-perfect synchronization. Ian felt his consciousness expand beyond the boundaries of flesh, touching something vast and alien and beautiful. Tyrus's mind opened to him completely, sharing not just memories but the fundamental essence of what she was. When dawn broke on day 6, they were no longer entirely human or Tavail. They were something new. "The final test," Tyrus whispered, though her lips didn't move. Their communication had progressed beyond physical speech. "Full activation. Complete fusion. Are you ready to become what we were always meant to be?" Ian looked through the cavern entrance at the Imperial fleet assembling in orbit. Hundreds of ships, enough firepower to sterilize the planet, all focused on preventing what was about to happen. "Yes," he said, and meant it. The transformation began at the cellular level. Ian's keeper implants, dormant for 2 decades, roared to life with violent joy. Power flowed through circuits carved into his bones, turning his nervous system into a conduit for forces that predated the Empire. Ancient weapon systems came online, their activation codes written in his DNA. Tyrus became his living amplifier, her bioelectric nature channeling and focusing his abilities until he blazed like a captive star. Together, they rose from the cavern floor, their combined energies lifting them through solid stone as if it were water. They emerged on the mountain's peak as beings of pure purpose. The Imperial fleet opened fire immediately. Lance batteries and particle cannons filled the sky with destructive light, energies that could vaporize cities converging on their position. Ian raised his hand and the attack simply stopped. Energy beams bent around them like light around a black hole, their destructive potential absorbed and transformed. "Impossible," Admiral Corvin's voice crackled across the comm frequencies. "No single being could generate that kind of defensive field." "We're not single beings anymore," Ian replied, his voice carrying across vacuum itself. "We're what comes next." He unleashed the cleansing fire. The weapon hadn't been used since humanity's golden age, when the Keepers fought wars between stars. It was a cascade of pure creation, energy that rewrote matter at the quantum level. It touched the Imperial fleet like a gentle caress, and every ship simply stopped working. Engines died. Weapon systems failed. Life support flickered and went dark. The mighty dreadnoughts became tomb ships drifting in the void, their crews alive but powerless. "This is your warning," Tyrus added, her voice joining Ian's in perfect harmony. "Leave this system. Spread the word. The age of empire is ending. The age of partnership begins now." The fleet fled. 1 year later, Ariel had become a beacon of hope in a galaxy learning to love without boundaries. Ian and Tyrus stood on the balcony of their cliffside home, watching their twin daughters play in gardens that bloomed with flowers from a dozen worlds. "Mama, tell us the story again," the older girl demanded, her green skin glowing with inherited bioluminescence while her human eyes sparkled with mischief. "Which story, little star?" Tyrus asked, settling onto a cushion with fluid grace. "The one about the cage and the silly human who didn't know he was supposed to kiss you first." Ian laughed, the sound echoing across the canyon. "I wasn't silly. I was careful." "Same thing," Tyrus said, curling against his chest as the twin suns painted the desert gold. "Next time you see a cage, just kiss me first. We'll save everyone a lot of trouble." Their daughters giggled as their parents' shared laughter filled the evening air, a sound of hope in a galaxy finally learning that strength came not from domination, but from the courage to become more than the sum of your parts. The hunt had ended. The real adventure was just beginning.